reality pertains to things, and constructs pertains to the ordering of things. It's as bare bones as it gets. Your reality is your whole existence. We're living in our reality, that's our reality, but it's not reality as it is. It's reality as we are. The reason that's important to note is that most of our problems come because we're living our reality. We're stacking the odds against ourselves by what we don't know, by what we don't understand, by what we don't see. Coming to the realization that we're wrong. In some degree, some way, in every aspect of life, we're wrong about how we perceive ourselves, other people in the world. My 2 steps are to grow, gain more knowledge, learn more truth, see reality as it is, and align myself with the new knowledge I gain. Putting myself up against the wall of truth, whatever isn't able to get through falls, fades away. And most people just hit the wall and fall back, and then they leave. But what happens if you actually go through the wall? The excitement I hope you feel, that I feel going into this podcast, is that there's truth, perspective shifting realities everywhere. If you don't feel like life is friendly right now, if you're not friendly to yourself, if you think the past has been unfriendly and the future looks bleak, lastly, this retains all of my central message. The facts are... Welcome to a beginning of a journey. A beginning, sort of, a journey for sure. But aren't we all on the journey? And in some ways, begin again every day. That's the goal for today's episode. I'll be sharing with you how I approach beginning again, how I approach the journey as a whole. These are the Hallmark lessons so far in my life. Lessons I've observed, I've experienced, I've hit the wall against. Lessons good and bad that can be melted all the way to a specific approach. The approach that will drive this podcast right now and into the future, and the approach I think every human being can benefit from. The idea of reality and constructs. Now those are 2 kind of random terms. They may mean nothing to you. And I'll admit they're kind of random still to me, but they have a purpose and a place important for us as humans. That's because we live in reality and we all perceive, believe, realize, live in constructs. The thing is, both reality and those constructs, they're unique. They're different. They're all encompassing and excluding at the same time. That's because mine are completely different from yours. Your best friends, your spouse, all of your relationships, every person has their unique one. Reality I refer to as life. Meaning, concepts, ideas, purpose, good, bad, beliefs, truth. The biggest synonym is truth. Reality and truth synonymous. Constructs, if you look at the etymology of the word, it actually refers to the ordering of things. And so reality pertains to things, and constructs pertains to the ordering of things. And so it's as bare bones as it gets. In life, in your world, during the 85 years or so that I'll live, that you'll live, we all have things, and we all have an order of things. That is the order and sequence of which things happen, but also the order we prioritize, the order in which we believe in things, the order of focus, the order of attention. And the reason these 2 are the concepts that I start out with is that it helps serve my goal of getting out of the weeds. Because too often in life, we are down in the trenches. All we can see is what's in front of us, to our sides, and behind us. But we never take the time to get an aerial view, to see where we're headed, where we've been, what's around us. But I think an aerial view is very important to have because the aerial view helps us see reality as it is. And that is the goal. Otherwise, our construct of reality is our field of vision. In that trench, our shoulders are hugged against the walls, side to side. We can see in front of us where the path leads, and behind us where we've been. But I believe in order to reach our full potential, that is, any dream we want, the happiness, the good relationships, the success, the confidence, the peace of mind, all of that comes from having a good vision, a good direction, to be able to see things as they are. So that is today's topic. And like I just mentioned, it begins with my purpose. What I want for my life is to achieve my dreams, the dreams that I currently have, but also the dreams that I don't have, because I don't know what I'll want 10 years from now. The dreams to me is simply the pursuit of progress, where I'm getting better, I'm getting skillful, more confident, more capable of a person. All of that to serve the peace of mind, the happiness, the joy, the sense of fulfillment that I have, and to help others do the same. Because I believe we all can do more than we think we can. The way that I approach my dreams in this pursuit of progress is a simple cycle of learning. I think we all do it. We act according to our knowledge, right? We act in the world. And then when that knowledge, we either see something that goes contrary to our knowledge and we gain more knowledge, or our knowledge reaches a limit. It hits a wall. We hit a wall. And that makes us go searching for answers, looking for something we didn't see before. That's been the cycle of learning for me. And what I've fallen in love with is that in that cycle is the realizations. When I have perspective shifting experiences, when I listen to someone, the dots connect in my mind, it's thrilling. It excites me to know. And that is what I've determined is the pursuit of the rest of my life. To keep connecting dots, to widen the horizon of my field of vision. Not only to do that, but to learn the patterns behind it. The patterns of learning, the patterns of success and failure, good and evil. To have an understanding, not just about what things happen, but why and how. And I'm just wired that way. I've been that way since the beginning. I love this quote from Epictetus. He says, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the view that we take on them." I don't think I've begun to understand that phrase and all its implications, but I've found that there are some cool things to learn from that phrase. So I invite you to think about it. With that quote from the ancient philosopher in mind, I want to share with you my approach. This is my approach to self-improvement, to wellness, to personal progress and happiness in life. This isn't all-encompassing, just what has been on the forefront of my memory that I was able to write down. And it goes back to those two terms, construct and reality. I read a book, it's called How to Know a Person, and he says that every human is a construct of reality, that you can think about it in terms of glasses. I am my own prescription of glasses. When I put on my glasses, I view the world in my construct of reality. That's interesting because of the million never-ending implications. Because that field of vision, those glasses, it influences how I experience and interact with the world. How I see myself, how I see other people, and how I see the world. And it's interesting to think of a person as a construct of reality. They're their own little bubble of reality. We don't live in reality as it is, but we live in reality as we are. Your reality is your whole existence. It's your taxes, your car, your emotions, your relationships, your self-belief or lack of, your confidence or lack of, your greatest fears, your greatest successes, your strengths, your failures, everything. At least that is what I've come to find. And so the reason why this is so important that I have not mentioned yet is that we're living in our reality. That's our reality, but it's not reality. It's not reality as it is. It's reality as we are. And so we're not living life. We're living our life. And the reason that's important to note is that most of our problems come because we're living our reality, not reality as it is. We're stacking the odds against ourselves by what we don't know, by what we don't understand, by what we don't see. The way I can prove this is by you and me thinking to ourselves about when we have changed, what was that process like? If I went from not having confidence to having confidence, what happened? My perspective shifted to some degree, in some way. Because our perspective, it's as upstream as it goes. From that stems our thoughts, our actions, our behavior. And so me changing in a place of confidence of losing weight, you could say that's not in my perspective, that was in my behavior, but it started in your perspective because your perspective holds your desires. So you shifted to care more about your health than not. Something shifted in there. The wheels turned so that suddenly you acted differently. My goal as I've thought about this, what if we lived in reality as it is? What if we understood things as they were? We could look at any situation and call it out. Call out a person's objectives. Call out deceit. Call out truth. Look at ourselves. Call out insecurity. Call out fraud. Call out authenticity. Call out truth. Look at situations and circumstances to see what we can change and how we can change. What if we were able to step into another person's perspective, seeing beyond our own? That is how relationships are built, being able to see the world in someone else's eyes. I know that I'm doing a poor job at trying to express this concept because I don't think I fully grasp it myself. But I've found that there is something there, and I hope to entertain it, to look at it, to question it, to learn from it, and to grow in my understanding of it. I've thought of reality and your perspective in two ways. If reality is a sphere, your perspective would be coming at one angle, looking at the sphere. You see this side, but you miss this side. Your perspective comes out of knowledge and direction in the simplest form. That is knowledge as your capacity, that I am capable of fixing a car or reading English or being honest and being deceitful, all because I have a knowledge about those things. I know how to do them. Simplest form of not having capacity is I don't know how to fix a car because I don't. I don't know how engines work. And so I can't do something that's not in my wheelhouse. In some way, that reality is not important because I don't necessarily need to know everything. That is why the second reality comes into play. That is direction. That within our wheelhouse, within our perspective, what direction are we going to go? That has to do with our belief and our desires and the affect, the appraisal we place on everything, whether we believe in it or not, whether we think it's good or bad, what we do about it, what we go for. Are we honest or are we deceitful? My goal for life is to attune both of those things, to grow in knowledge. And I don't like that word. I like understanding better because it's not just about knowing things, but how they interact and knowing things in truth. And that is why you have direction. And part of that direction, how I think you gain that is through wisdom. Wisdom is an attribute, but if you look at the real meaning of the word in its oldest form, it actually talks about discernment. It's about being able to see things as they are. And that is so important. As I grow in knowledge, I can see myself as I am. Taking your self-belief as an example is a really fascinating example, and it can be helpful because I see myself with a certain perspective, different than my wife sees me or than my mother sees me. They have their perspectives. My mom sees me as her son. My wife sees me differently than I see myself. But no one sees me as I am, even I don't. But the reason why that's interesting and why it would be helpful to try and see myself as I am is that that's the truth, isn't it? If I'm not, then I'm living some lie. It's not about seeing myself in wholeness, every facet and aspect, but in this way, direction beats capacity. It's about seeing accurately. What I see, not knowing every facet, but knowing what I do see accurately. That is my history, my future, my abilities, my skills, so that it serves me. Because if I have self-belief of failure or anxiety, that is hurting me, right? It's hurting you. And so that is where wisdom comes into play. As I see myself, other people are the world, it's being able to discern. And as I learn new information, assimilating and accommodating all of that information to change what I believe. Update, change. And then desire also plays a role because desire has a direct influence on what we choose and our behavior. And so the basis of my logic is that we all are living our life as best we know how, in our own constructs of reality, about what we think is possible for us, how we think the world works, in our earnings, in our happiness, in our relationships, our capacity of what we think we're capable of, our judgment about how we think other people should treat us, how we think other people do treat us, everything, everywhere. But coming to the realization that we're wrong. In some degree, some way, in every aspect of life, we're wrong about how we perceive ourselves, other people in the world. And so the approach is to grow our perspective, to learn, have more knowledge, to come into more truth. That's the first part. But then the second part, which I argue is harder because no one does it, is that we align ourselves with that truth. Currently, my level of capacity for the knowledge I have, I live below it. I think everybody does. We know what honesty is. We're not honest sometimes. And so my 2 steps are to grow, gain more knowledge, learn more truth, see reality as it is, and align myself with the new knowledge I gain. Putting myself up against the wall of truth. Imagine this is truth and there's a hole cut out. Whatever isn't able to get through falls, it fades away. And most people just hit the wall and fall back and then they leave. But what happens if you actually go through the wall? You let go of everything that's not aligned, that isn't truth behind you. And why I'm so obsessed with this aspect of truth is because I think the truth is good. I think that is the source of everything that's good in the world. I think it's the source of hope, of every smile I've ever had, every positive experience. And I think everything negative, evil, pulling me away from that is in opposition to the truth. And that would be what's not truth, what's not reality. It'd be deceit, fraud, constructs, incorrect of reality. It's a scary thought to think about the fact that I'm living that lie. That how I see the world and what I do every day, how every experience, every conversation is tweaked. It's laced with things that are not true, things that are not hopeful, things that are not joyful. That's a scary thought. And the last reason is, like I said, it's fun. It's entertaining. It's exciting to learn and grow. And what I'm hoping to do personally in my life, but also in this podcast, this is the whole reason I bring it up, is that I'm here to learn from a variety of perspectives. I have mine and you have yours, and I want to learn from yours and the countless other people in this world. But not only that, the perspective of a tree, the perspective of history, times before us. So underrated. I can't believe that so many people just live their lives in the 21st century and forget the fact that there have been countless people that have gone through all of these same things. And the reason why the past is important to consider is that everyone starts out at ground zero. When it comes to the human condition and spirituality, contrast that to science. I get a textbook from the 1800s about astronomy. Not helpful. Completely denounced. It wouldn't serve me at all. Technology is able to be passed on. So every generation builds on from the previous. The same thing is not true for any wisdom about the human condition. Everyone starts over at ground zero, and they suffer from the same problems of greed, sorrow, insecurity, pride, selfishness. Everyone. And it's a personal journey. One that I go through and one that you go through. But the benefit of history is that we have people to learn from. Countless lives, generations, societies, cultures, religions that have all gone through that with various approaches, and we can learn from them. Skip a lot of the unnecessary suffering and pain. The second aspect of this approach is that as we learn from a variety of perspectives, this is indirect and direct, because a lot of people hear what they hear and see what they see and take that at face value. But there is so much more that the unobserved teaches. Sherlock Holmes, I guess Arthur Doyle has the quote, "The world is full of obvious things which nobody ever observes, And I love that it comes from Sherlock Holmes because it's easier to put yourself in the mindset of a detective. To look at the mundane, the obvious, the normal, but to see beyond. And so that is for the words said and unsaid. And that is about gaining a lens in which we view the world, to look at the obvious and to question, to ask why. That is one of the hallmark lessons I've learned, something that comes naturally for me and something that's benefited me. To everything you see, ask why. I just listened to Stephen Bartlett today. He talked about his concept I think he coined it. I love it. Beware of paper walls. That some people, everyone tells you, we're sheep. We follow the person in front of us. Go this way, don't look at that, don't go that way, go this way. All to find out that some walls are paper, that we don't do them simply because we don't do them. But there could be a better way. Life is about finding the paper walls, finding the better way, contrary to popular belief, contrary to the obvious. So along with that approach, I have the steps to learn from perspectives and then gain and retain the attribute of wisdom, which is so important. Everything is useless if you don't have this. It's like if you read a book and you just read the words, all in singularity, all by themselves. You didn't connect it to anything. You didn't get any story, context, or implications. Wisdom is important because it's about constructing knowledge, layering, order, placement, truth, affect, knowledge of good and bad, positive, negative. That's because wisdom helps you to see things as they are. And so as we learn things, we personally take the responsibility of how we interpret that information. And that's something we have to take responsibility for. Wisdom is important because that helps us know how to interpret. And then as I interpret, if I have that lens of wisdom and see things as they are, then I change. I let everything that isn't good enough pass and fall behind me as I go through the door of truth. The excitement I hope you feel and that I feel going into this podcast is that there's truth, perspective shifting realities everywhere. That is what I've come to experience and find exciting. People different than you all across time, and in this time, cultures, traditions, schools of thought, various religions, science, all different from you can teach you powerful lessons. And what's interesting is that you'll find the same lessons dotted throughout. I can find authenticity in ancient philosophers' texts and in 2024 rap. And as you look at art, Vincent van Gogh, you're able to see things in a new light, to see things in perspective, to look at a painting in context, to look at the point of life that he was in when he painted it, the meaning behind it. That is a life rich, full of learning. It's a life living because you're able to taste all the flavors, to learn from other people's experience, and to have all of the experiences. Even 200 years ago, that wasn't possible. You lived in your hometown. Travel was harder to come by. Information outside of your norm was harder to come by. But we're living in a time where all the knowledge, all cultures are being globalized. And that is exciting as far as you have that attribute of wisdom to be able to discern, pick through it all. That is the excitement that comes along with this approach. And to help you get a little taste, these are a few of the lessons that simply came to mind of Hallmark lessons of my life. The first is, of course, to get out of the trenches, to have an aerial view, to grow your perspective on the reality you're living. The way that I've done that is ask very important questions of what, when, why, and how, and where. A lot of people focus on one in their life, and they'll know it really well. I know how to do this. I know a bunch of what's. But not a lot of people focus on the why. At least that's what I've found in my experience. And it's become awesome for me. And to be a helpful skeptic to whatever circumstance, whatever experience you're having, ask why. And I think you'll be intrigued at what you find. But along with that, to be able to surrender to the truth, to not have pride, to not have selfishness, but to let go of misconception, preconceived ideas that are wrong. Another lesson is authenticity. If you want to learn about authenticity, the reason that is important is because so many people are living the fabric of stories of other people or of what they're being told to. Fads, virality, just look at the teenage population. How clothes change every 2 years, haircuts change every year. It's kind of crazy. But authenticity isn't about being a slave to the fads, because then you're connecting your life to something that shifts. It isn't even in your control. You don't create it. But what if you created everything in your life? Which leads into deliberateness. What would your life be like if every single thing that you did was deliberate, putting your best foot forward? I think our lives would look very different than they do. To contemplate that and to have something like that to pursue, I think looks like a bright horizon, a bright future. Another lesson to keep in mind, to maybe stir some excitement, is the inquiry versus advocacy ratio. How is yours? This one makes me laugh. And obviously I can't talk right now because I'm literally talking in a camera. But the idea behind it is, how often do you inquire versus advocate about something? How often do you state your opinion and push it on someone else versus ask? Be in a state of standing your ground, asserting something versus learning. Of course, the better thing to do is to be learning, to put yourself in inquiry, to have a 2-to-1 ratio. For anything you advocate on, ask 2 more questions. And lastly, the facts are friendly. This retains all my central message that I'm trying to get to reality as it is. And the reason that truth is so important is because I believe the facts are friendly. It's a phrase used by Carl Jung. He was a famous psychologist that I have a lot of respect for. And it's something that I've found to be true. So if you don't feel like life is friendly right now, if you're not friendly to yourself, if you don't think other people are friendly to you, if you think the past has been unfriendly and the future looks bleak, it's my belief and my testament to you that the facts are friendly. I believe there is hope that beats despair. The light overcomes the darkness. And it's not just because that's the better thing to believe in, that's the more hopeful thing to believe in, but because I think it's true. That is what I've come to experience. And trust me, I've been a pessimist most of my life. I used to call it realism, but that was just based on my perspective. And I realized that was wrong. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode. The reason I made it is to get some of the context behind how I'm approaching this podcast. And that is understanding reality and constructs, that the goal is to live in truth and to figure out the way how to get there. And that includes you. The biggest part is you. I want this podcast to be collaborative. Comment below, recommendations, feedback, fact check me, whatever you'd like. But I do hope and I do ask to do it in a spirit of progress, of respect, and community, to build one another up instead of tear each other down. If you have any ideas for me, I'd love to hear them. And with that, I'll see you next time.